Thanks, Manas. So today I'm going to be talking about something totally unique, absolutely novel. You've never thought about it. You've never heard about it. That is a chatbot. So all of us are stuck with chatbots, whether we want it or we don't want it. You want to track your calories, I use ChatGPT. You want to write code, use Cloud Code, we are expressing our will. Or you want to make a presentation, you just point to the right directories and say, hey, Cloud Code, make me a presentation for a meetup. Totally hypothetical, but yes, that can totally happen. So before we talk about the product, we talk about something more important, me. So who am I? So that's what I looked like about 4 years ago. Take one nice picture, use it everywhere forever. But I've been researching, developing, and deploying AI systems for about 11 years now. So I'm one of those pre-ChatGPT AI people that you might meet. I've done a lot of work across classical machine learning models, think about logistic regression and random forest and XGBoost and stuff. A lot of deep learning stuff before it was cool to call APIs. So work across computer vision, natural language processing, speech processing, all that kind of stuff. And now, like most AI people, I'm calling APIs, which have their own unique challenges as well. I used to work at Axel Springer, where actually I met Benas. I'm also an Ex-Idealo, which is a price comparison engine. I'm also an ex-human with a brain, because last 4 years, I feel like I have outsourced my thinking to ChatGPT. But all of us are here together in there. I work for this company called Dananomiq. We are a consulting company. Been around for about 10 years now, a little over 10 years. And we deliver end-to-end services, our core especially being data stuff. You need data engineering help. Daconium guys are great. We are also good. So you can come to us. We also do process mining, which is you have a manufacturing plant or customer segmentation, anything you want, we can help you understand your processes and make it better. And of course, we do AI stuff now as well. And some of our customers are, some of those names you probably already know. So there's life sciences like Merck. There's heavy machinery stuff like ThyssenKrupp. Also accessories like Mr. Specs, energy like Vattenfall. All right. Now, who did I build this chatbot for? So this is for this big news company in Germany called Funke Medien. I'm not sure how many of you know the company, but they have a couple of brands, news brands. So one of the brands is called Was. This is a regional newspaper targeted towards the Ruhrgebiet, which is North Rhine-Westphalia. So think about Essen, Dortmund, Düsseldorf, and these towns and cities. They also have a lot of other brands like Berliner Morgenpost, Hamburger Abendblatt, and several others. So this is a regional news chatbot. Now, what is the problem that we try to solve? Readers go to a typical news story. So not the homepage, you just go to the homepage, you click a news story that interests you, and users kind of want related information about the news story they're reading. Any context, any background information, stuff like that. So user is curious. So here, for example, I just took some screenshot of a knife attack in Essen, and believe me, for some reason, there's a lot of knife attacks in Essen. I don't know why, but ever since I've been working on this project, which is since September, knife attacks are like my favorite, because they just pop up all the time. And they're also quite challenging, by the way. I explain later. So now somebody's reading a story about a knife attack, and this is not the first report about the event. It's like a second or a third report. Maybe the first report was about, hey, knife attack happened. Second report was about, hey, knife attack was done by somebody from Essen, age 17. Third report is about, we're still looking for this person. There's the image of this person, look about. So the user might be reading like the second or the third story, and then they have questions like, hey, can you tell me a specific thing about this crime? Or can you say, hey, are similar crimes also happening in the past? For Essen, they are happening, I can tell you. Now, typically, what the user would do is click around the news website. Is it time? No? Okay. Right. The user will click around the news website and try to find this related information, or maybe completely bounce off the website. Most likely go to Google. Here is this knife attack that happened 3 days ago. Can you tell me one specific thing about it? That's what happens in the absence of this chatbot. But now we are smart. Now we introduced the give me a context or give me context chatbot. So afterwards, you look like this. So it's just 2 screenshots from 2 articles here. That's in the same article. And in the first screenshot, there was a specific aspect mentioned in the article, some program Periscope. And the user wanted to know about how does this work. The information for this particular program was not in the current article, but it was just mentioned. Now, if user wanted to know before this chatbot, they would just Google around or click around the website, maybe use the search functionality, see if something pops up. But now it's just inside the chatbot, and you can still stay with the stories. Or you can look for similar cases that other stabbings happen in North Rhine-Westphalia, and you get an answer about some of this stuff along with a bunch of links. So let's concretely define the problem. A regional publisher that is vast, it pushes hundreds of articles per day, and readers want to know about the backgrounds or background of the article or some related information. And we needed grounded answer, multi-turn German language chatbots. We want them to embed on the website. Where does it go on the website? On the specific articles, not on the main page, but you click an article, read the story, and you get the chatbot. And of course, we want everything to have good references and not hallucinate. And basically, that's what we built. Apart from the basic chatbot, there's some other functionalities within the chatbot. We call them conversation starters and follow-up questions. So you click a chatbot, and you see a bunch of questions that pop up. That's what we call conversation starters. You start chatting, and the bot starts suggesting follow-up questions, and that's just follow-up questions. And of course, you get citations, and everything is streamed for latency. So there's this 3 kind of elements to us. One is, the front-end stuff. I have no idea about front-end stuff, and I didn't develop it at all, and this is out of scope. So talk to the front-end team if you want. I'm talking about the back-end here. So it's a single fast API server. I use some agentic frameworks like Pydantic AI, and of course, everything is streamed. Data and models heavily rely on, of course, vector search. So there's some index we have in some cloud. Embedding some multilingual, we wanted this to be focused completely on German, but multilingual also works fine. And of course, surprise, surprise, I use LLMs. And of course, this is a super important part for tracing what happened within every call. And prompt versioning, I use Langfuse. So let me take you through a quick RAG pipeline. So what do? The user goes and writes a question. The first thing I do is figure out what the user might want. A user might be asking a question. A user might be asking for a summary. A user might be just wanting to do their Python homework. So we identify what intent the user had with this latest question. Then the second step is reformulation. So you want to ultimately construct an embedding vector so that you can take that vector and search in your vector index. And you want to provide as much information to this vector as possible. So the users can just say, hey, give me similar cases. That's what the screenshot was about, ähnliche Fälle. And the bot has to understand what similar cases mean in this context. Similar cases mean, hey, stabbings in North Rhine-Westphalia in last years, and maybe somebody died there, maybe. And this whole intent, this whole additional information, this enriched information, is taken care of by a reformulation step. Then, of course, we create a vector out of this using the embedding models. We throw it to our pre-prepared index, which runs on a schedule, takes new articles, creates a whole index again, and you can search in there. Then I get a bunch of articles, because semantic embeddings are, as you might be aware, are not the best thing all the time. So I get a lot of news articles, depending on what the user asked. And I typically do a filter step where I drop irrelevant articles. So that's another explicit step. And of course, at the last, I just pass the information back to my agent and say, hey, here's all the information you need to reply here, to formulate an answer. Now, go bonkers. And the architecture is a combined agentic and workflow architecture. And the workflow architecture is you're not just leaving everything to agent all the time. You say, do step 1, and then deterministically do step 2, and deterministically do step 3. So there's elements of this workflow kind of stuff here, and also agentic stuff where we allow agent to exercise some agency. Yeah. So I already talked about what conversation starters and prompt suggestions are. I think we can go ahead. Now, what's important here is how we build it. So the approach to building these things is super important, is what I would say. The architecture and stuff, I think we can still do it, but where a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of projects die is approach. So I believe that's the more important part of the whole thing. So what we did in the beginning was, so when I started the project in September, the customer had already been trying to build this for like 8-9 months. This was like 4th attempt at building this. And when I asked them what they wanted, they had some loose description of, yeah, you know, we wanted people to go click and talk to an article. But then I was like, okay, I cannot answer everything here. Like even ChatGPT cannot answer everything. What kind of stuff do you actually want the bot to do? What kind of questions from the user do you want to be able to answer? What kind of questions do you want to be able to deflect? And I turned up with question marks. So I was like, okay, let's just do something about it first. So we created an internal tool first. I will show in the next slide. It's a simple Streamlit front-end build, all vibe-coded, by the way. And I basically said, hey, you will get an article, and you get to chat with the article, and you can rate the responses all the time, right? So, and this was shipped to internal users. So I was working primarily with editorials. So this is an editorial product, as you might imagine. It's a news website. Whatever content there is and whatever interactions there are, they're ultimately editorial responsibility. And of course, I was working with some product people as well. So this is what this looked like. So it's so pretty, as you can see. Not really. There is the article that the user might be reading. On the left side, these are the questions. So bot suggested a question, or user wrote a question, you got the answer. And in the bottom left, you see some stars. And people can add some comments here. So the testers, they would rate every comment from 1 to 5 stars. And that helped me understand 2 things. What kind of answers are being dealt with properly. And this also allowed the editors and the product people to really see what kind of questions they are asking. You know, so it's no longer this open field where you are able to answer and ask everything. We did this over and over. So in every iteration, I would get something like this, a rating scale from 1 to 5. And I would say every answer that's 3 and above is fine, I can live with it. Every answer that's 1 and 2 is bad answer. So then I would dig into the answer, I would dig into the question itself, and figure out how to improve this. So I would read the whole thing. Again, Langfuse was super, super helpful. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you're building any of this stuff, always have some kind of observability built in from day one. Otherwise, you're just flying blind, which was the case with the customer before. So you read the bad answers, and especially the bad answers, actually, and you classify and cluster them. Some of this you have to do manually. AI jobs, they look all hot and all kinds of stuff, but half of the job is just reading boring crap all day. So that was my job here. Why was the answer bad? Was the question itself stupid or something that we didn't want to tackle? Was the intent bad if the maybe user wanted a question, asked a question, but I gave it a summary? I don't know. Or the retrieval failed, I got bad replies from my vector database, so I now need to think about that. Or I wanted to know about a stabbing in Essen, and the bot said, hey, it's a stabbing in Dortmund. That's a bad thing. So then I would go through all of these, and then I would cluster them together. It was done manually as well as semi-automatically. Then I would, once I identified a bunch of clusters, hey, these are big problems, hey, references are really off, hey, intents is really off, then I would present this to the customer and say, hey, these are the big clusters that I found. I think we need to start addressing this and this first and not worry about the minor stuff first, which is also a thing that a lot of people do and get wrong in the approach. They see one time something wrong and they get obsessed with fixing that one thing. So you first have to be able to quantify exactly how much of the problem is happening, how often is it happening, how bad is it, cluster them, and then do some change. A lot of them, that was again boring prompting and a bunch of tuning. Then I would go revisit my failure cases, see if I can fix them, and basically float another iteration on my test front end, and again ask users to play around with it. And there were several testers. We had like 20, 30, 40 at some point. So I got decent amount of ratings there. Another thing I did, I also addressed this somewhat early on. I mean, again, manually, it's hard to do all the things all the time. So I built some evaluations right in front. I wanted to see if the responses are correct. Are they concise, or the bot is rambling about whatever? Are the links, so that's citation, adherence, are the links correct, or it's unrelated? Some guardrails, some ideas about can user do prompt injection, get the bot to misbehave. And sometimes the bot needs to ask for more information if the user query is not good enough. Is it doing that enough? So I took some samples and I said, hey, if this is the article and this is the question, I want this to be the answer. And then when I made a change, I tested it. If the answer was correct, I said, fine, correct. Otherwise, no. And that's how it went on iteratively, and we improved the score. Once we went live, one of the things I did, and I'm still doing, is expand the evaluation set. So mostly the way the project was staffed was it was mostly just me working here, and also under very strict deadlines, which means there was not enough time to do everything I wanted to do. So the evaluation set in the earlier pre-MVP stages was not very big. So now I went to production. Then I wrote some LLM as a judge pipelines, and I rated live conversations to find out any issues, so some kind of clustering like I did before. Then I included those failure cases and also some really good success cases in my evaluation test set. And this is something you have to do, or maybe you don't want to do, I want to do, iteratively, and add more sets, add more evaluation samples there. All right, results and lessons, what live data taught us. To our surprise, the production quality was very closely related to the internal testing, which almost never happens. But because we had this testing UI very early on, went through several rounds of iteration through different kinds of testers, we saw it very closely resembled the kind of questions users were asking and the way people were interacting with it, and hence the bot's replies were also pretty similar. Although there was some new issues that we see, which is also fine. But this was a major win for us. So because then your pipeline becomes predictable, fewer surprises, fewer, I don't know, Saturday 12 a.m. debugging sessions. So that's good. And of course, conversation starters drove the conversations a lot. So if you open a chatbot, some questions already pop up. You allow the user to not think and just click. And this is a new kind of UX pattern that has emerged thanks to chatbots. We just want to click, 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 click. So this was working pretty decently. Sometimes the conversation starters or the follow-up questions that we proposed to the user were not answerable by the bot. So the user would click a question we suggested, and the bot would say, hey, I don't understand what you're talking about. And the users, sometimes we had some really funny conversations. Users would be like, but you recommended this stuff. What are you doing? So that's still an ongoing thing that we have to work. And of course, there's all kinds of fancy prompt injection attempts. I don't know. Some guy uploaded some PDF in bytecode and wanted the bot to tell like where the image is, the caption of the image. I'm like, what are you guys doing? So then I thought about myself, how I was dealing with ChatGPT. So we are all in this together. Lessons, again, I'm talking about all this again. So do the front-end stuff, or at least figure out your concept, do iterative development. Also, always use observability framework, and also have somewhere where you can do prompt versioning. The Langfuse does it, but there's also the frameworks. And where we go next, so the latency is kind of high right now. If you go to, if you check out the product, and in my my local versions, it's already pretty fast now, but it's still not deployed, but that's the ongoing thing. And some suggestions are still not great, so make suggestions great again. And that's what we are trying to achieve. All right, thank you. And we are hiring for a senior full stack engineer. You can send your CVs at the email mentioned. Thank you.